Y'all just don't want fat people to have anything. That's what it is.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie, and for those of you who don't know me, I used to weigh 360 pounds, and I've lost 180 pounds and kept it off for years now. And on this channel, we will discuss weight loss, weight maintenance, nonsense I see online about body positivity and fat acceptance, my experiences with all of that, and well, anything else I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get into today's video. So today I have part 2 with our new friend to the channel, Mighty Murphin Fash. And I've got a couple more TikToks of hers, so I figure we'll go ahead and watch those together and I'll give you my reactions along the way.
Inevitably, when I talk about plus size fashion and access to clothing, there are always people who argue that short people and tall people also can't find clothing. And while, yes, every single person deserves access to clothing, but there's 2 reasons why I don't find this to be the exact same thing.
Okay, so we've got the setup that she thinks that it's different for plus size people as opposed to short or tall people. So I gotta say, I am 5'9" and I do have to purchase a good portion of my clothes online. We're talking pants, coats, a lot of dresses. I mean, basically anything that's not a t-shirt or maybe like a sports jersey. I almost always have to buy it online so I can buy tall clothing. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, my sister, she's 5'2". So I'm definitely familiar with her struggles of trying to find petite clothing over the years as well. So I'm genuinely curious how this is going to be different for plus size people. So let's see what she has to say.
So example number 1, let's say you were traveling, you were on summer vacation, and your luggage got lost. If you are a short or a tall person, and push came to shove, your luggage gets lost, and you had to go out and find something, you could go buy a dress. Because a dress does not require you to be a certain height. You could get a maxi dress if you are tall, you could get a mini dress if you are short, and you could make it work. It would be able to fit on your body.
Okay, but that's not entirely accurate. I literally just said I have to buy a good portion of my dresses online. For that very reason, actually. So let me go ahead and break that down a little bit. So in case people like our friend here, they don't understand, hopefully this will help them understand just a little bit better. So when it comes to women's fashion, you're going to have 3 measurement points typically. You're going to have your chest, your waist, and your hips. Now what is not accounted for is the distance between those measurement points. So that's where having petite or tall clothing is going to change the length, and not just giving extra length in the legs of your pants or the arms of your sleeves, right? But also the distance between these measurement points as well. So for example, on dresses, so say it's a dress that's got straps, it's a spaghetti strap dress. The difference in length between the shoulder and the chest, that can make a huge difference. So for example, because I'm taller, I can wear something that might be a little bit longer in the strap, but my sister who's 5'2" on the opposite end, that might come very low on her and make it to where she's not able to actually wear that dress any longer. Or then, for example, another thing that I have to contend with, if any dress has a slit, oh boy, there's a real good chance that that slit might come up very high on me because a good portion of the length that I am wearing is on the body. So what's supposed to be on my legs is very high up on my legs. So there are definite features to dresses that can make it much more difficult if you are short or tall. It's not just a question of it being able to fit around your body. But in that same vein, if there's not enough length in that garment, if the waist is actually supposed to come to my actual waist and is the measurement of my actual waist, which is a 29-inch waist, but it say only comes to right under here and fits more like an empire waist dress, it's not actually going to fit around here because that's a different measurement than my waist. So that actually can make a huge difference when you're talking about different lengths of clothing, especially when you're talking about a dress. So this notion that I can just go in and buy whatever and who cares if it's a little short on me, that's not entirely accurate. Yes, I might be able to find like a big loose t-shirt dress and make that work, I suppose, but that's assuming that they will have it. And this is all under the assumption that I go on vacation, the airline loses my luggage, and I must replace my clothing in store that day. That's the scenario she has come up with to prove that this is a different thing than what short people and tall people are dealing with. Well, I gotta say, it's bold of her to assume that I own luggage. It's bold of her to assume that people can just take vacation. And also then the assumption that people will have not only the time and ability to take off of work, yet the ability to purchase an airline ticket, money for accommodations once you get there, plus then spending money so you can go sightseeing and you can eat while you're there. And then, additional spending money so you can now replace all of your clothing. I mean, I gotta be honest, knowing how a lot of people are currently living in America, paycheck to paycheck, just trying to get by, that seems really tone deaf. That's the example she came up with, that we have it so much worse because if we go on vacation and they lose our luggage, we can't replace our clothes. And I gotta be honest, the last time that I was on a vacation of any sort, I got to spend one day in Chicago, and that was 8 years ago. So I gotta be honest, for the person who is in desperate need of a vacation, if that scenario played out before me, if I went on vacation and the airline happened to lose my luggage and then I didn't have anything in my carry-on bag, which I gotta say, I think that's a little short-sighted. I would definitely have had things packed in my carry-on. But say that exact scenario played out and all I had on me is exactly what I am wearing right now. My shirt, my bra, my leggings, my flip-flops, and the jewelry I currently have. Guess what I would do? I'd make it work. Just like she said, well, you could make these clothes not work. I would make not having my luggage work for me. I mean, personally, just thinking about it, since I haven't been on vacation in almost 8 years, if something were to go wrong on my vacation, I am going to try desperately everything in my power to have a great time in spite of that. I'm not going to let that stop me having a good time when I'm in desperate need of a vacation. I will deal with it when I come home and deal with the airline and get my luggage returned or have the voucher sent so I can get my belongings replaced. But if all I had on me at this current moment was what I had on me for a vacation for an entire week, I'd go back to my hotel. I'd wash my clothes in the bathtub if I needed to. I'd take the little mini hairdryer they always give you in every hotel room and I'd dry my clothes. And I'd rewear this outfit every single day for a week because you know what? I wouldn't care because I'd be on vacation. I wouldn't care whatsoever. Oh my gosh, that's the example she came up with. And I already found a solution in which I didn't even have to spend any money to replace clothes. So I don't know, maybe this is just me, but if I were on vacation and I were able to take the time off of work, buy an airline ticket, have my luggage be lost, but still get to go on my vacation, I would just be grateful for the notion I'd be on vacation. And then I would deal with the lost luggage after I got home. But I am not going to let that stop my vacation, but maybe that's just me.
A plus-size person could not, because we would not be able to find something that could fit around our body. Number 2.
And again, you can put items in your carry-on, and you can also wash and rewear the clothes that you currently have. I understand it's not ideal, but sometimes you do have to make the best of a bad situation. And if that is the worst thing that happened on my vacation was that the airline lost my luggage, but I still had a great time the rest of the time, I'd still consider that to be a successful vacation. But maybe that's just me, the person who is in desperate need of a vacation.
I tried searching at one point for the statistic of tall women in the US, and I think what I came up with was how many women are above 5'10" or something, and it was such a small statistic. It was 1% of US women or something.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that's an actual statistic for women who are above 5'10". However, you don't have to be above 5'10" to be wearing tall sizes in clothing. I'm 5'9", and personally, I've been wearing tall pants since I was in 6th grade when I was 5'6". So it really does depend on how you're built, how you're proportioned out, where you carry your length. I've been wearing tall sizes since I was 5'6", and at 5'9", I desperately need tall pants. So that statistic, while it might be accurate, it doesn't really seem relevant to the notion of who's actually purchasing tall clothing. So I'm very familiar with the notion that if you are over a certain height, you're probably going to need talls. And it's not the threshold she put it at least not from my personal experience, I gotta say, and not from the experience of dressing other individuals for a number of years in my retail jobs. So I did look up the number of women who are considered tall in the US, And the very first result that came up is women 5'7" or above make up 10% of the US population. So that is a far sight more than the 1% or the less than 1% she was trying to claim. And when you actually put in the right term in the search engine, I got a result immediately. So while I'm not doubting the accuracy of that statistic she gave, I'm just not really sure about the relevancy.
But like US women, there's 70% of us that are a size 16 and over, and we only get 20% of the fashion market. So like,
okay, and so I have looked up that statistic that 70% of the women in the US do wear a size 16 or above. And there are at least some questions I have when it comes to that statistic as well. First and foremost, this is not a survey done by clothing manufacturers as to what is actually selling. This was a survey in which women self-reported the number that they typically buy. And then the other thing I want to point out is I'm not really sure how we can get an accurate statistic on that when brands vary wildly in sizing. I mean, if you're a woman, you already know. And if you're not, just ask any woman in your life and you'll find out very quickly. We all have multiple sizes in our closets. I have things up in my closet all the way from a small to an XXL. And then you hold them up and they're all relatively about the same size. The actual measurements of the clothing, they're all about the same. But different brands are going to label them different sizing. And so I'm just always curious when we're talking about a size 16. A size 16 in what brand? Because if I look up size charts at, say, for example, Torrid and American Eagle, Torrid starts at a size 10. But that size 10 at Torrid is going to be much more comparable to a 16 or an 18 at American Eagle. So when we're talking about a number size, it doesn't really give me all that much to go on. I have to be honest. I would much prefer if they actually talked about measurements or actually giving sales figures for individual brands. And then we could actually look up the measurements and the size charts for these things. Because women's clothing sizing is so arbitrary. So when we're talking about 70% of the population wears a size 16 or above, well, which size 16? Torrids, American Eagles, Old Navys, Kohl's, Macy's, or any of the sub-brands that they carry at those department stores? I mean, they could all be different actual measurements, but the same size. So I'm genuinely curious what that actually means, because I really have tried to look for this online and I just can't find it. I just find women's sizing. I just find that same statistic over and over again, but I feel like it's missing a lot of context. So if anybody does have that information, please let me know down below. I would really love to see it. But all I keep hearing is the same figures repeated over and over again, and I'm just wanting more context.
It's like trying to compare two totally different things. Like I'm talking about 70% of the population not having access to clothing, and you're talking about 1%.
And again, her statistic that 1% is not accurate. 70% versus 10%. Now, I will definitely admit, if those numbers are accurate, yes, there is a disparity. But that being said, I already can tell you right off the top of my head a number of stores I could go find plus sizes at if I needed to. But I'm trying to think of any store where I could find tall clothing in store reliably without having to look it up. I'm just not certain, to be perfectly fair, because I got to be honest, when I have found tall clothing in stores over the years, I mean, they often appeared to be online returns and not things they typically stocked. So, I mean, I do see that there is already a difference in the number of offerings between plus size fashion and, for example, clothing that comes in tall options. And in my last video, the part 1 that included our friend here, she talked about how much money the plus size industry is already making. I mean, I couldn't even look up statistics for the tall clothing industry. It's not even its own designation. So I think that is very indicative that there is already tremendously more access for plus size clothing than there is for tall clothing. So I'm not really sure what the point is our friend here is trying to make. I have been everywhere from a size 6 all the way up to a size 28. Finding tall clothing has always been harder for me than it ever was finding plus size clothing. So I'm just not really sure what point she's trying to make. Yes, there are less of us, but we also don't have our own category of clothing either.
US women not having access to clothing. So like, we're talking about two completely different populations. And it just like, it doesn't make sense to me why we're comparing the two, because I'm talking about a huge underserved population and you're talking about a microscopic underserved population.
Yes, because she has manipulated the statistics to fit what she wants. Because it sounds a lot more beneficial to her argument to say that it's 1% or less than 1% of the population, when 10% of US women are 5'7" or above. So yes, I understand that there is a difference between the number of plus size women versus tall women. The point that tall and short women are often trying to make, and she just keeps missing no matter how many times people try to explain it to her, we have all the same access. We have to go online. And when you are outside the standard of sizing, that's going to be the case for everybody. If you are plus size and you cannot find your size in stores, you're going to have to go online. If you are very small, you may have to go online to find your sizing. If you are short, if you are tall, there's a real good chance you're never going to find it in store and you're going to have to go order it online. We all have the same access. We have to go online. And another thing I have to point out, and it's not just our friend here, but so many times when they're talking about finding clothing in store, they're talking about accessibility. And I gotta be honest, every time I hear this group talk about accessibility, it really rubs me the wrong way. It really honestly bothers me, because accessibility doesn't mean that you can just go into any store and find what you want and buy it at any time you'd like. Accessibility is actually meant for people with disabilities. You know, things are handicap accessible. That's what accessibility means, that everybody is able to access it regardless of their ability. That's what accessibility actually means. And so if we're talking about actual accessibility and how that's going to impact the people that need it most, you know, people with disabilities, the internet has been a game changer. Being able to go online and buy whatever you need has been absolutely fantastic. If you're unable to cook that day, with a few taps on your phone, you can have food delivered to your front door. If you feel like you might be able to cook but not able to make it to the grocery store, you can have groceries delivered to your front door. If you're not up to getting out to the store, or I don't know, say perhaps you need mobility devices or you're in a wheelchair, and then you would also need the vehicle to transport you, or perhaps you need a caregiver to go along with you. The internet has made things so much simpler for so many people with disabilities. I mean, I know, for example, one of my local grocery stores for quite a while, I believe they did quit this after 2020 and the smishmashio, we'll call it. But for quite a while, they had what they called white glove service, and you paid just a little extra, but then they would actually come in, bring your groceries into your home, and put your groceries away. And I can't even begin to think what a godsend that could be for somebody who might be elderly or disabled and just wasn't able to complete those tasks. That's what accessibility looks like. It doesn't mean that every single store is going to have everything you could ever desire at the moment you want to purchase it. If we're actually talking about accessibility, being able to purchase things online has been a game changer for so many people with disabilities. So every time they talk about access to their clothing, they do have it. You have to go online. The same as if you're short or if you're tall or if your feet are large or very small. We're all in the same boat in that we're more than likely going to have to go online to find what we're looking for. So that's the point that she keeps missing, that we can all go online and purchase what we need. And I mean, at least like personally, before the internet, if I ever wanted to try to find tall pants, I had to order them out of a catalog. And I mean, I definitely recall my mom calling in over the phone, giving the item number, ordering our clothes, and having them either delivered to the house or shipped to the store, and then we had to go pick them up. So yes, I definitely recall waiting weeks, if not months, if something was back ordered, just to be able to purchase clothing. So the fact that we can go online and have things delivered to our doorstep within sometimes hours or days, I mean, that's been a huge win for accessibility.
So like, I don't get the argument. I haven't tried looking up like how popular or like how prevalent short people are. So if anyone has that statistic, we can try to look it up. But like, it's just, these two things are not comparable, I'm sorry. And if you try to do the whole like, well, you can lose weight, but like I can't get taller or shorter, like please don't go into that, because if you are still on that shit in 2024, please educate yourself. please read a book. Please read medical research, because I'm so tired of arguing, oh, it's so easy. It's not.
Okay, no one said it's easy. It actually is quite simple, but simple doesn't mean it's easy. And yes, people cannot change their heights, but you absolutely can change your weight. I'm half the size I used to be. I know it can be done. I'm not going to say it's easy, but I know that it can be done. And yes, I understand that while you are losing weight, you still do need clothing. I understand that. But that's never their argument. It's not that they can't find clothing. It's that they can't find clothing in store. It's that they can't find cute, trendy, stylish clothing in store. It's all of those things that they are looking for, plus in store. That is what they are constantly talking about when it comes to their accessibility, that they want to go be able to buy things in store. When in many cases, if you are outside the standard of sizing, whether again, you are plus size, whether you are short, whether you are tall, whether you have feet beyond a size 10 as a female, you're going to have to probably shop online. So yes, they are the same thing. If you are very tall or you are plus size and you go to a store and you're trying to buy something in store, there's a very good likelihood that you're going to walk away with nothing. And that is effectively the same thing.
I have lived as a fat person for 38 years. My lived experience beats your thought experiment.
But does her lived experience trump my lived experience or anyone else who has lost weight and kept it off? Does she really want to play that game? I'm not sure our friend here wants to.
Oh, I also forgot that she said somewhere in her comments that it's just this particular style we don't have access to. We have millions of other options. Where? Because I am a size 3, 4X, and where? Like, you can go look at my other videos. We have access to clothing literally like nowhere, especially above a 3X. This is literally the whole argument. Stores should carry up to a 5 to 6X, and they don't. They barely carry up to a 3X, and a lot of stores that carry up to a 3X are not even a true 3X, and stores don't carry that size in store. They ostracize it to online only. This is the whole argument. So where do you think we're getting clothing? Because we're not. That's her whole argument, that we have millions of options. Where?
Okay, so clearly if you're above a 3X, you're not going to get clothing, even though she says that she often wears a 3 to 4X, and clearly she is clothed in this TikTok. Oh, wait, that's right. It's always about access to clothing in store. Despite the fact those of us who are short and those of us who are tall are going to have the same access, and that is we have to go online to find it. Anybody who falls outside the standard of sizing is going to have to go online to find it. And hell, even if you do fit into the standard of sizing, say you are a size 6, if somebody comes into the store and buys it right before you do, and they no longer have it in stock, you'll have to go online to buy it. So this whole argument that they need all of these things in store, this whole argument that they need all of these clothes in store and that they can't go online and just purchase it like other people have to all the time, it just doesn't make a lick of sense to me, because they do have access. It's just not the access that she is looking for. And so knowing that there is access, just not in the way that she wants this access. And so the argument that I hear over and over again from body positivity and fat acceptance when it comes to extended sizing in stores is that they have all this money that they just are willing to spend. And if companies would just put out what they want, they would go spend their money and give them the money and get what they wanted, right? So I don't know. It just is starting to sound to me like they're coming across a problem that their money cannot solve. But maybe that's just me. Let's go ahead and take a look at this last TikTok and see what our friend has to say.
Can you honestly look at me and tell me that you have never once felt like I could be more comfortable if this seat on a plane had an extra couple inches?
Okay, let's go ahead and read the comment that she's responding to. It says, I get that some of the seats are small, but you people need to realize that the seats aren't a problem until you have a serious health problem.
I would feel a little bit more comfortable if I had a tiny bit more leg room on this plane. I wish I had just a tiny bit more arm room in between me and the next person. You can't look at me and be like, I wish I had a tiny bit more room on this plane.
Okay, so full disclosure, I have never actually been on an airplane, so no, I couldn't look her in the eye and say those things because I don't have a frame of reference. But I have been on tour buses, Greyhound buses, trains, city buses, other forms of public transportation, okay? And yeah, I can definitely say on some of those occasions, a little extra room would have been nice. However, I also know on planes, if you would like extra room, they have other sections. You can go into business class or first class if you need extra room. Otherwise, you get the same amount of room as everybody else in coach. So yeah, I can understand that people might want a little extra room, but that's also part of the reason why they offer those other classes as well. So if you do require extra space, you can get extra space. So I know, for example, if I wanted more legroom, I could go up to business class.
That has never been a thought that has ever occurred to you in your entire life when you've been traveling? Never?
Nope, because anytime I've traveled, it's been in a car or a bus. So never thought that about a plane while I've traveled. I mean, just being honest.
You have never thought that airplane seats were just like a tiny bit uncomfy? You have never walked down an aisle of an airplane and been like, you know what, I wish these were like a tiny bit roomier? Never. You have always thought that they are perfect.
Well, I can't say that I thought they were perfect, but I mean, I haven't been on a plane, so I can't tell you if I think they need to be roomier or not. So, but let's see what else she has to say.
That you are super comfortable. No one can say that. No one can say that. Come.
Well, actually, my in-laws, they just went out to the West Coast a couple weeks ago, actually, and I asked them how their flight was, and they said it was better than they expected. So they didn't complain about being cramped on the flight the whole time.
On. Literally the tiniest person in America cannot say that they've been totally comfortable in every airplane they have ever been on.
The tiniest person in America? Really? Well, that would make them smaller than my kids. And I'm certain my kids could fit comfortably on an airplane seat or really any other seat. They've never had any issue sitting in any seat. So yeah, I think that's being a bit hyperbolic, that the tiniest person in America would still be uncomfortable in a plane seat.
You cannot look at anyone and say that with a straight face. Access benefits everyone. I don't know how to be more clear. Y'all just don't want fat people to have anything.
What? Okay, let's go ahead and break down what she is asking for without having actually asked for it at this point. So she wants a little bit more room on airplanes, right? So she wants the seats to be a couple extra inches bigger. She would like more leg room. She wants more room on the armrest. She wants more room in the aisles. Well, like I said, I have never been on an airplane, but I do know enough people who have worked on airplanes, okay? And also, I did take engineering in school, so I am very familiar with the design of airplanes, okay? And airplanes, everything is a game of inches. Absolutely everything. So if you want extra space on all those seats, extra legroom, extra room in the aisles, extra armrests, all of these things, all of this extra space is going to have to come from somewhere. And I'm not really sure where our friend here thinks it's going to come from, because I'm fairly confident where it would come from. They would just remove seats from the plane. And if they start removing seats from the plane, let's go ahead and break that down. First and foremost, you're going to have to pay for the cost of the retrofit, then the actual cost of the actual seats, and then you're going to lose a number of seats from every single flight, because there's no way in hell you will be able to fit the same number of seats but make them all larger without making the plane larger. That's just not how it works. The size of the fuselage is the size of the fuselage. So, I mean, those things still all have to fit in the plane. Like everything that keeps the plane up in the air, all of the equipment, all of the communications devices, all of those things still are going to have to fit in the plane. But then she wants more space. The only way to accommodate that more space is to take out seating. So not only are we going to talk about a capital investment for the cost of the seats themselves, plus the retrofitting all of those planes, plus who knows how much downtime for these planes to get retrofitted, but then now we're going to have flights running with fewer passengers. Yeah, the only way that I'm seeing that happen is a cost increase to all passengers to make that happen. because there's no way in hell an airline is ever going to just do that out of the kindness of their heart and then take the loss on all of that. They're going to recoup their costs one way or another. And the easiest way to do it is just to raise airfare for every single person. So access is going to benefit everybody, except for, once again, poor people. She didn't care about the cost increase that might be negligible if Old Navy had to go ahead and increase costs to make everything size inclusive in stores. Now she doesn't care if poor people are going to be able to afford access on an airplane, because, I mean, despite never being on an airplane, I do understand that to access a flight, I mean, hell, to access past a security checkpoint, I'm going to need a boarding pass. And you got to pay money for that. Regardless of your size, you have to be able to afford that boarding pass in the first place. So if there's already a lot of us that can't afford to fly as it stands, and now we're going to make it more out of reach financially for other individuals, I gotta say, she really has no problem spending other people's money, does she? I mean, all of the things that she wanted Old Navy to do, all of the things that she wants airlines to do, all of the ways that she doesn't care that these cascading effects will affect poor people, and then she's going to sit here and tell me that access benefits all? What, are they giving away free passes to poor people? Because if so, sign me up. I'd love to go on a plane ride and take a vacation. But access benefits all does not apply here. When part of that access is going to require money to access it in the first place, and then all of the things that she wants for, quote, more accessibility is going to put that more out of reach for people that just don't have the money for it. So I'm just genuinely curious how she can sit here and tell me with a straight face that access benefits all when she's not even thinking about poor people whatsoever.
That's what it is. Literally making seats a tiny bit larger would benefit everyone's comfortability level.
Okay, and comfortability isn't even a word. Okay, maybe I'm just being a little petty at this point, but that's not even a word. It's comfort level. Comfortability is not a word. And yes, I will definitely admit that adding just a little bit to every single seat is going to make a difference in how many seats they can fit on the plane. And thus, that would raise airfare for everybody.
Every single person.
Again, except for poor people that she doesn't think about at all every time she's talking about spending other people's money.
Every single person. Y'all would be so much more comfortable.
Yeah, if you can afford to be so.
You just would. Also, you literally can't tell someone's health problems by looking at them.
Okay, and what does that have to do with airplane seats? And I gotta say, you can't always tell people's health problems just by looking at them. But there are plenty of health problems you can see by just looking at someone. If somebody has a broken leg and they've got a cast on their foot, that is a very visual indicator that they've got a health problem going on. If people saw my grandpa with his guide dog and his red and white cane, they could visually see that he's blind. Sorry, my cat just jumped up and shook absolutely everything on my desk. So yes, people could look at my grandpa and see that he was blind. If somebody is having liver issues and they're turning yellow, you can see that. There are a lot of physical representations. And I say this as somebody who does have an invisible illness. I fully understand that. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And while you can't always look at me and tell me that I have it, when it's acting up, you can definitely tell that I have a cane. You can see my walker. You can see all the tape, braces, splints, wraps, whatever I've got to use to kind of keep myself put back together. You can see that. And so, yes, I understand you can't always see it, but in many cases you can. And often when we're dealing with extremes, if we're dealing with the extreme on either end when it comes to weight, you can often see it. So yes, I understand you can't always tell people's health just by looking at them, but there are plenty of physical manifestations when people's health is not doing so hot.
Read a fucking book once in a while. Go to medical school.
And we got here from airline seats.
Follow a fat person online and learn. Y'all make me lose brain cells when I have to talk to you.
Oh, the irony. The irony. It almost feels like bait, but I'm not going to take it. Just point out the irony. So there we have it. Our new friend and her thoughts on plus size clothing, airline travel, the health consequences of obesity, and so many other things, where it's very evident to me that she just thinks that everybody is just going to keep throwing money at all of these things to solve all of her issues. That she expects that companies are just going to drop all this capital investment to create a plus size clothing line and do it the way that she wants it done. That airlines are just going to reconfigure the seating to make everybody more comfortable. Where she thinks these companies are just going to do these things without effects to the customers, such as price increases. And she thinks that everybody is going to benefit from this access without even giving a thought to people that can barely afford access as it is right now. And then also can't forget that correlation does not equal causation. And well, why even worry about any health effects when it comes to obesity? Because there's so many other factors, right? Where I know from my personal experience that my obesity did cause direct consequences to my health. But maybe that's just me. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think? I'm genuinely curious, and I love reading all of your responses. That is where we'll leave things today. I thank you so much for joining me. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye! Repeat this. Pokey is so thrilled that I filmed a 2-part video today, so she got to do this twice. Look at that. She's so thrilled. She really is purring, I promise you.